we are here for a workshop on a temporary sign installation at Bates Mill number 5. First, let me say welcome to Lewiston, the second largest city in Maine, but the city with the biggest heart. Please proceed.
Good evening. My name is Lincoln Jeffers, Development Director for the city. I have got Tom Platch, Charlie Hewitt, and Pat Bolduc from Neocraft Signs who's with me. I am going to pull up an image here, which will give you a sense of what is looking to be installed. It did get some good press in the paper. I believe it was on Monday, or maybe it was Tuesday. Alicia, I swear I don't need to ask you for help. There we go. There we go. So, I'm sorry. Yes, no, exactly. I worked with Mr. Gudis earlier this evening, who sort of informed me on a couple of things. So this is an image of another version of the sculpture. I think the first one installed that Charlie did down in Portland. Charlie has done the round sculpture locally. Has done artwork really around the country. He's in galleries. He's on the High Line, the rattle sculpture that we have here. There's one in Portland as well, but I think the first one was done down in on the High Line in New York City. Charlie grew up locally, passionate about the community. He's done a lot of work as part of the cultural plan for the cities that are looking to bring more public art to the area. I wanted to show you this image. This is where it will be installed. This is the north wall of Bates Mill number 5.
Right along Main Street.
Right along Main Street. I'm not sure I can pick out exactly where it's going to be. When we were standing down there, you could sort of make out an area. Is it the dark spot on the left?
7. It's where it says cultural plan calls, go up above calls.
Okay.
I think that's the
Yeah,
big-
right underneath the middle.
Yeah.
The middle sawtooth. So that'll give you some sense of where it will be. Pat Bolduc with Neocraft is here. They're right in the thick of the installation at this point. The fabrication at this point. Hope is for installation on the 23rd with a major event, or maybe not a major event, but a public lighting event at 7 o'clock on New Year's Eve. In a nutshell, that's the project. I think Charlie and Tom might be able to better speak to sort of passion for this, what has driven it, and then open it up. We're really seeking permission from the City Council to allow installation on the exterior of the building. It is a temporary art installation, looking to be up there probably for 2 or 3 years, is the plan. With that, Charlie, would you like to come up to a mic?
You're all familiar with Charlie's artwork, I hope, at least the rattle that's down at the mill now. This is meant to be temporary installation. First of all, it's going to have to be moved as soon as we start construction, which is hopefully going to be soon. And also, the city actually has some remediation doing the roofs, so it won't be there for a long time. Hopefully, we'll find a permanent home for it at some point. The sign is roughly 30 by 8 feet. It represents, I'm trying to think of the portion of the building. Typically, your signs are allowed to be 10% of the major face of the building. This will be like 1%. I mean, it's this building faces, I think, over 12,000 square feet, and the sign's about 240 square feet.
I'm sorry. I'm Charlie Hewitt, and it goes from column to column, 30 feet. It's dwarfed, but it'll have a special presence in its place. And it's important to bring up, somebody addressed the LED issue, the lighting issues, and I've asked Patrick from Neocraft to address that, any concerns about safety, drivers' issues, and talk about the kind of lighting we're talking about doing. Would you be interested in hearing something about that?
Sure. But Charlie, welcome back to
Well,
Lewiston,
thank you,
too. I think it's a pleasure and a privilege to be having you want to place things, in our community.
Well,
So.
and Mike, it's a privilege to me to be able to do this as well. I love this part of the world. I was raised here, my family, my culture's here, my language is here, the music is here. I mean, I'm an old man now, but I'm still part of this fabric as a young boy here. So, and I have a great collaborator in Tom Platz, who's always, yes, let's do something, and let's do something different and unique and is pay attention to the fact that we're in the 21st century. We're living a new culture, new community, and I have spent a lot of my life developing my skills so I can make pieces that are controversial sometimes. I am not arrogant about art. I don't like it to be put in people's face. I hate public art when it's put up and people don't understand. And it does happen because that's the nature of art sometimes. We're supposed to talk about it. I love the fact that public art is not permanent. So you can argue about it for 3 years and then it'll be gone and can move to something else. And it's not, that phenomenon has gone on in every state and every city in the country that puts up a piece. And now also, this is not publicly funded. That's really important too. So we're not asking for taxpayers to put their funds into this whimsical idea. Tom and I are going to take care of that. And we're hoping that, I bring this up over and over again, but I'll bring it up again. You have one exit off the turnpike, and there's so many wallets and purses of art tourists that drive by that exit. If we could create, and it's already started with a mural of the zebra and 2 fabulous mosaics of Mars and Hartley. Those are first-rate pieces of art that went on. So things are upping the grade. People are doing it just doing it because it's the way we think now. And those mosaics are beautiful. And then if we could contribute something to put packaged together so people would someday just pull over, come into town, hit the restaurants, visit the community. And I think they'd find authenticity still here, a uniqueness that just really only can happen in a town like this. So that's my pitch.
Thank you, Cheryl.
So before we talk about lighting, I just want to clarify again that the city's not being asked to put any money into this. You guys are taking care of that. And then also, that this wasn't something that the city went out and commissioned. This is a proposal that's being brought to us. Correct? Okay, great. Anything you want to add, Mr.?
No, I think this is just kind of the beginning of, what can happen in downtown Lewiston. I mean, just for your informing you, we see it as a beginning. Actually, I'm meeting with another artist next week who's doing a proposal for a sculpture for us within the Bates Mill complex. Won't require anything from you. We'll be paying for it all. It'll be on our property. But to get this whole art walk and thing just kicked off, and we really want to get this thing moving, get people interested in downtown, and couldn't do a better job of having Charlie kick it off.
Questions from the council before we do the lighting?
Yeah,
Okay,
more
Deb.
lighting. You said that there was going to be no expense to the city of Lewiston. So you're covering the electricity involved?
We're happy to. It'll probably be about $10 a year. It's an LED, but yeah, we can cover that.
It uses as much electricity as a lamp. So that's an interesting thing about these lights.
Well, I'm asking because seeing how the city's only getting $1 a year, or even less in this last contract, this last option, and it's still, if the city was on the hook for it, and earlier today, that was an open question, but you've answered it for me. And I'll reserve my time later after the lighting issues.
Councilor Councilor Pettinger.
So I just wanted to say thank you to Tom and Charlie for bringing this forward and the importance you place on bringing art into the city. Myself personally, I think there needs to be more art. We've got too little art, so if it costs the city $10 a year to light it, I'd happily write the check myself. I think it's sorely needed. I'm glad you brought up, what art does. It's meant to engage. It's meant to engage the people, to talk, to think. So I'm super excited about this. A little different than what I would think to put there, but that's okay. That's what it's supposed to do. So thank you. I'm looking forward to being down there on the 31st to see it go up. So.
So, Councilor Dean.
Sorry, I just want to make a comment. I think it will generate a lot of comments, a lot of conversation.
So there you are.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries.
already.
We're ready for you.
What would you like to know about the lighting? Are you, I mean, are you concerned with the brightness of the lights,
So
or?
I think that we've had a resident express concern about how it may distract drivers coming across the bridge, what the brightness is going to be. So I would say anything you can inform us of would be helpful.
Well, as you saw by the earlier picture, there are going to be 3-inch globes, frosted white globes, which give the same appearance as the incandescent lights. So they're 4-watt bulbs, which is probably equivalent to a 30-watt incandescent bulb. So they're more like accent lights, not really reading light. So they're not meant to be too bright. They're just meant to highlight the sculpture.
Other questions about lighting? Council Martha?
And one other thing, I'm sorry if I may, so the LEDs will not be exposed, so they'll be shielded by the frosted white bulb, so you won't see any exposed LEDs.
Probably just one comment I'd make also is if you look at these, they're probably 60-watt bulbs in your globes right now, so this would be about half that.
The piece in Portland's at Woodford's Corner on top of a one-story building, and it's right at the turn. It doesn't affect anything. It's kind of just lights up the color inside of the can. If that helps. Yeah.
This was an issue that was raised in one of the 3 letters to a city council that I saw this afternoon. And looking at the shape and design, I didn't think it would be an issue from a lighting perspective. It's not like the LED displays that we see along some of our main thoroughfares. We do have to have a conversation with regarding to that. There's a couple of stop lights where, when those change from let's say a dark green to a bright yellow or white, they're very distracting.
They
and
can be very
bright.
bright, yes, yep.
That's it.
So you can't tell, but I'm smiling. I'm super excited about this. I think that I agree wholeheartedly with Councilor Pettengill that anything we can do to sort of incorporate public art in this community, it's definitely sort of one of our unspoken gems, I guess, and we need to be better about how we publicize that. So thanks to you both, and thanks to Link for presenting tonight.
I'd like to just say one thing, Pat, I think it's very important to have this dialogue about public input. I think it's important that the public understands that this is different, but not dangerous or concerning. No, it's important because it is new. And some towns have gone ahead and just railroaded sculpture in front of people, and they've had to live with it. That is not appropriate. If we're going to embrace this, I'd like it to be through a community, and I'll come to any forum, and Tom would too, I'm sure, and to talk about it so it does alleviate any concern. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Councilor Marquette?
Yeah, I was saving something for last. Wanted to get through any of the specifics that came up, like the lighting. When I first saw this on Friday, obviously all I saw was the one-page picture. And today, I even got a text on my cell phone regarding artwork, unique. Someone had actually driven through Portland and saw the property out there. And I think that their concern was, if this is art and it's supposed to be unique, well, it can't be unique if there's one in Portland. And I have to question whether this is artwork at all, or if it's simply advertisement. I have no problem either way. The city's not contributing to the cost. We just need to provide permission because it is a city-owned building, optioned by Mr. Platts. But as far as artwork is concerned, I don't see it as art. The comparison to some of the other pieces over history of Lewiston, such as the rattles, I think the silent majority in Lewiston thinks otherwise on the artfulness of that particular piece. People still remember the the city of Lewiston paid a large sum of money back in the 70s for a piece that who knows where it's sitting, rusting these days. A bunch of cogs and wheels, and that piece really did signify Lewiston's history. I mean, I have to look at the word hopeful, and I'm thinking, what does that mean? Another 30 years of waiting for something to happen at mill number 5? It seems more like advertisement, but if we're trying to send a message, I could come up with some better words. Aspiring, determined, enterprising, resourceful, hopeful just doesn't do it for me. And that was the concern of one of today's letter writers. They didn't really expound on what their concerns were, but that's what I get as a take from it. Hopeful just doesn't do it, but determined that we're going to be enterprising in this community once again, because not much is happening, and hate to use the word, but I'm not too hopeful that we're going to see tax-paying enterprises happening on that location. When I hear about the YMCA and other nonprofits, there may be a net negative effect to the community if we're providing more services than revenue. So, well, that's my take on it. I'll support the motion next week to allow this to go forward, because it's neither here nor there, as far as I'm concerned. I just don't see it as art when it's basically the same thing that's going on in Portland. It may be different shapes slightly, but it's not unique. I don't view it as art. Advertisement, maybe,
Okay.
if that's what the sentiment is supposed to be. That's what I have to say on the matter.
Counselor Bean?
I love it. I think it's really whimsical, and I think it's going to generate a lot of conversation, but isn't that what art is all about? Is to generate comments, and I think it's great. And I like I have to disagree, I like the word hopeful. I think it's it's whimsical, and I like it.
Counselor Joy?
Thank you. I kind of like it also. At first, I looked at it and I was thinking as to why it was there or why you would put it on that building. But then the further that I thought about it, I started saying maybe people will drive by and look at Hopeful up there and wish for something good to happen with that building. Because I think that sign is going to be associated with that building, basically. And, you know, some of the comments are going to come out, they'll be negative and positive, but that's how you learn about how the art is expressing itself. So I kind of like it, and I'm kind of anxious to see it lit up. So, thank you.
Can't wait for New Year's Eve. Counselor
Yeah.
Lyson?
I can't recall her name, but the Swedish environmentalist, 16-year-old who was over talking about climate change. And Greta?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a quote from her that I love. It's, hope has to be earned. You have to do something. That was her quote. When she was asked, are you hopeful about the movement for climate change and at least understanding? And that was her response. And I think hope, to me, kind of changed its meaning a little bit there, that's something that really we need to do something to earn. So anyway, that's my thought, and I particularly like it. And I mean, we could discuss and debate art, you know, and what it is and what it isn't. So, but I can't wait for December 31st. In fact, that'll be a nice way to celebrate New Year's Eve.
Kate? Councilor LaJoy.
Yeah, that was just a thought that came back. On television, art is different to many people as to how they see a product that has been put on canvas or on a wall. And the reason I bring that up is this week on television, they had a banana taped on the wall. And I had something like, what, $27,000?
$120,000.
So, it just goes to show you that art is different with different individuals, how they look at it, and the object speaks to them.
If I could just address really quick, I don't want to take all your time up. The sign is taken from the signage that would go on a Packard in 1952.
That's what I was going to say.
We're using a design from automobiles. I was thinking about a time when the country loved its highways, people loved their businesses, they put different kinds of signs up advertising pizza and restaurants. When I would go out with my parents, we'd go for a drive, we'd celebrate, and people would be full of life on these roads, and I'd like to bring that back in. So part of this is this is a young boy talking to you. This is saying, our aspiration is to go back to these great times. And we felt great about each other and traveling from state to state.
Charlie, you're showing our age.
I know, right? I'm trying to get this, I'll do anything to get this done. I'll even put myself under the bus. But you know what I'm saying, you remember that? So to give you some idea where it didn't come just out of my head. The idea did, because I have children, and I'm aspiring for their lives too, and our country and our community and our relationships. And this says, let's get out of our corners and get into the middle ring and shake hands. That's what I'm trying to get across with that.
Thank you.
All right.
Great, thank you. Oh, Councilor Ray.
Thumbs up.
Okay, thumbs up. Thumbs up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
This will be on next Tuesday's agenda for formal approval.
And now, we have Link presenting on Community Development Block Grant Consolidation Plan. Should I call Pauline up here too? Come on down.
Pauline, I've got Pauline Gudis with me. I think she's known to all of you. Pauline is chair of the Citizen Advisory Committee. And I also want to thank not only the committee, but my staff, Heidi McCarthy and Jane Yoakum, who put enormous amount of time in pulling together all the data and working with the committee, and which has resulted in this consolidated plan, which I'm going to try to go through relatively quickly. And I'm certainly not going to get down into the nitty-gritty. But a consolidated plan is a requirement of HUD. It is a consolidated plan. It's basically a strategic plan on how you intend to use your dollars, CDBG dollars received over the coming 5 years. It's a policy document. And at this point, we are in the midst of a public comment period. I sort of looked over my shoulder to see how many people were in the room. So even though tonight is not officially a public hearing, when we first put notice in the paper, we had thought it was going to be last week. It was going to be on December 3rd. So we had put it in as a public hearing at the workshop. The actual formal public hearing will happen on December 17th, which is when it's next week. We'll be asking you to approve it. But if anybody cares to speak tonight, we would ask that the council will allow them to do so. And also for those who are watching at home, this is the complete plan is on the city's website. You can take a look at it, and we are taking public comments, and all of those will be incorporated into the final submittal to HUD. Lewiston is a CDBG entitlement community. We have been since 1974. Under those rules, there's really 3 elements you need to address. The national objectives are that you need to benefit low to moderate income people, you need to reduce or eliminate blight in the community, and if urgent need arises that poses a serious and immediate threat, you can use CDBG dollars for that. that last national objective is rarely achieved. It's more like you have a tornado come through and blow apart town. That's when you can use it. It's not just for simple things that happen as a matter of course. Lewiston's focus over the years has been to really develop viable urban communities. We've used the CDBG dollars to provide decent housing, a suitable living environment, and expand the economic opportunities for low to moderate income people. Along those lines, we have occasionally used it for public facilities. If you all, I think this council was the one that approved the YWCA had a leaky roof, and they just didn't have any means to fix it. So the council that authorized the reallocation of monies to help them fix the roof, those type elements as well. Public engagement is an important part of the consolidated plan process. We had an online survey. We engaged our public service agencies, a bunch of local businesses, housing providers, as well as state and local government agencies. We had 38 responses specifically to that. The survey questions covered issues such as who are the populations that the various respondents worked with, what services did they provide to those respondents, what were the biggest challenges, obstacles that the organizations were up against, as well as the challenges and obstacles that the population had to deal with. What were the barriers to affordable housing, economic opportunity, and public infrastructure barriers? As far as public engagement, I had introduced Pauline. She is the chair and has been. I was surprised as we were finishing up. It's been 10 years?
I've been chair, this is my third year as chair.
Third year as chair, but how many years have you been on the
7.
committee? Just 7 on the committee, okay, okay. Pauline's been with us for a while, she has worked with it. Councilor Beam has served on the committee during her entire tenure on the council. David Mielson is the vice chair. He's a representative for the neighborhood. Sue Sharon, our former general assistance director, serves, as well as Ashley Medina, and we now have an advocate from the immigrant community, Abdi Kadir Nagay.
Do we really have 2 Sue Sharons on that?
There can be no replacing her. Just as I was looking at this, I noticed I had been there twice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because there is another one that lives in the community, and I didn't know if both of them were on there.
No, just our GA. My mistake. And actually, Scott McClellan, who is also, he works for one of the homeless shelters, so he provides the voice and perspective of that group. We also didn't look at just the conversations we had, but there has been significant public planning over the last few years. The Legacy Lewiston Plan engaged hundreds of citizens. The Choice Transformation Plan engaged hundreds of citizens. The Lewiston Auburn Alliance of Services for the Homeless, which is better known as LASH, has been working and had lots of meetings related to that. So that was incorporated as really informing our analysis of impediments to fair housing. And when Heidi first started with the city, she had also reached out to some of our downtown business and building owners, finding out what had worked well with our loan programs and grant programs and what could be improved upon. So all of that was wrapped into developing the consolidated plan. The area where the CDBG dollars really are primarily focused are census tracts 201, 202, 3, and 4, which is really the heart of the downtown, the area behind Central Maine Medical Center running to the river and heading up towards Bates College. The city also, that overlaps significantly with the Choice Neighborhood Plan area. What is missing is Census Tract 202, which is the area behind Central Maine Medical Center. The Choice Neighborhood Plan was focused.
Over here, Link?
That area to the
And
left.
that's where
yeah.
the Saxon project is.
That's where the Saxon project is in Census Tract 202. And so when we went to the Choice Neighborhood Plan, the reason we've got 2 slides here, that gray sort of L-shaped box in the middle is really where the focus of the Choice Neighborhood Plan has been, although it incorporated the other 3 census tracts. The other reason this is included is we have a neighborhood revitalization strategy area, which is a program under HUD which allows you to have a little more flexibility in how the CDBG dollars are used. You don't have to be quite as strident, making sure that, under the regular CDBG program, you can only put money into creating affordable housing. Under an NRSA area, you're able to look at and use some market rate housing. There's a couple of things you can do. And so it was a very challenging application to get an NRSA designation, but it was significantly overlapped with what the choice plan application was. So we automatically got it and are looking to take advantage of that. I'm going to get into some statistics here just to give you a sense of the challenge before us. The downtown census tracts 201 through 204 have very high poverty rates compared to the city. They have lower higher education attainment levels, with the exception of 203, which is a bit of an anomaly. It has higher education levels and a low unemployment rate, but you still have about 1/3 of the families living in census tract 203 are living in poverty. So that's 203 is sort of the classic example of a working poor neighborhood. The other point I'd like to make on the slide is census tract 202, which is the one behind the hospital, where the Saxon project is planned. You'll see that the incomes are significantly higher than the other 3 census tracts in the target area, and I think that's really a reflection that that area, all the work that has happened over the years, that area is starting to transition. The Saxon project is a reflection that that area is really starting to move towards middle income and perhaps up. Did you have a question, Zach?
How old is this data?
This data, I think, is relative. The census is done in 2010, but they update it every
Yeah.
couple of years. So I think it's probably within 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
I was not the one who did the data crunching, but I know it was from the American Community Survey.
Jane is nodding her head yes. So.
15 to 17.
There we go.
All right, thank you.
There's the brains at the outfit. This is another slide really showing the education levels, which again reflects why we have some challenges in these neighborhoods. 35% of the residents in Census Tract 201 don't have a diploma at all, 22% in Census Tract 203 and 20% in 204. Again, as I noted, 202 is the one that is transitioning. Median household income, again, it's retelling the same story, just a different way. 202 is the orange slide. The income levels there are higher, as has been reflected in earlier slides.
But
Still,
not as high as the average of the city, though.
exactly. The blue bar on the far right side is the overall city. So you can see the 201, 203, and 204. 201 is really the Tree Streets area. That's the lowest income area. Looks like it's just slightly above 15,000 as a median household income in that area. Challenging to make a go of things at that level, which is why the CDBG is coming in. Another issue is renter versus owner-occupied housing. Citywide, you can see it is really very well split between the two, but when you look at the downtown census tracts, once again, 201, you have a tiny, tiny percentage. It's about, looks like it's maybe 2% of the ownership, of the tenancy in the downtown census tract is owner-occupied. The rest of it is renters. And as you move away from the downtown, the number of owner-occupied housing increases dramatically. Another measure that's frequently used to measure cost burden on both renters and homeowners is whether or not you pay 30% or more of your income. The blue bar are owner-occupied houses, so you can see that the majority of owners of properties are at that 30% or less. But as you start looking at renters, those that are paying more than 30% increases, and some of them are a significant percentage, are even paying more than 50% of their incomes. So it's this is the demographic data behind what drives how we determine how consolidated plans should be investing our CDBG dollars. Again, another slide showing it. 45% of renters are cost burden citywide versus 27% of owners citywide. These are some of the issues that folks get into, and I will say these are not citywide, these are statewide numbers, but I think they're reflected locally as well. Both single parents and other families, and a significant percentage, especially single parents, couldn't pay a utility bill over the course of the year. They couldn't fix their car when it broke down. They had to reduce sizes of meals. They had to move because they couldn't afford their housing. These are the issues that the CDBG dollars are really intended to help address. Another issue that the slide really plays out is the percentage of people, young people, ages 5 to 17, that are living in poverty. In the target area, 74% of the people are living in poverty, which is significantly higher than the percentage citywide. So yeah, various slides illustrating the same element. This is something, actually, Pauline just went through a training. I went through this training several years ago. It's a model that came out of Vermont called Bridges Out of Poverty. And it's really the way people perceive the world and operate in the world are really determined by whether you grew up in poverty, middle income, or a higher income individual. What stayed with me from my training years ago was for low-income individuals, money is something that you spent. You really live in the moment. You don't have a sense of the future. You don't get into a job for career. It's simply to pay the bill. It's for survival. You don't really organize. You don't plan ahead. So for low-income people, money is something to be spent. Something for middle-income people, it's to be saved. And for higher-income people, it's to be invested. And that whole worldview really changes how you perceive the world. I know you just went through the training much more recently than I did, Pauline. Is there anything you would...
The words speak for itself. During the 2-day training, basically people who are living in poverty, if they have $5 in their pocket, they're going to spend it before they get home. It's a matter of survival. They have no sense of future. They don't have a dream of, oh, when I grow up, I'm going to be an astronaut or a ballerina. It's just out there. It's really a very different ideology and method of how they think, and that's part of the problem. It's getting out of poverty doesn't mean just hand them a job or hand them a check. Because if you give them money, and this is what I got out, if you give them money, it's going to do no good. None at all. You have to change their mindset. And you're going to do that with education, with mentoring, and getting them to be convinced that they can achieve. And that can be a great deal of work, a great deal of work. Money's not going to solve the issue at all.
Thank you. With all the background I just gave you for demographics and some of the worldviews, it really came down to 4 goals. And these are guidance we received from HUD this year was that in our last consolidated plan, we had, I think it was about 10 goals that were very specific. They said, loosen up, just to take a broader brushstroke. It creates some flexibility as you're looking to allocate dollars and as circumstances change. So this is a large bumpers around how we will spend the money. For public service agencies, provide essential public services to improve quality of life for individuals and families in lower incomes, special need populations, and those experiencing homelessness. That's sort of the very general statement. Each year, we're limited to only investing 15% of what we receive, and the prior year's income can be given to public service agencies. One of the benefits I had spoken about with the revitalization strategy area is you can actually exceed that 15% cap so long as the services are being provided by a community-based development organization, which CCI is. So that's one of the benefits of that. Another recommendation from HUD was we fund too many agencies, and we've been trying to dial that back. I think when Pauline first started, we were doing about 16, 17 agencies a year. We had tried to get it down. I think this year we did, actually this year we were pretty good. Last year it was about 12.
Yeah.
The recommendation from HUD was let's take it to no more than 10 agencies Also, let's get more bang for the buck. Not bet more bang for the buck, let's fund fewer agencies, but give them more dollars. We've had some agencies that have received as little as, $2,500. The burden upon them for that $2,500 is enormous. So we thought, let's do fewer agencies and give them at least $5,000. As Pauline had just noted, let's improve education, early education, job skills for folks living in this area. Let's reduce barriers to fair housing, and let's help folks, the homeless issue, emergency security deposits and utility deposit assistance for those who are suffering from homelessness or at threat of becoming homeless. Next goal was really housing, and it's improving the supply of safe and affordable housing for those in low, moderate incomes. One of the taglines, I think it's most memorable from the Choice Neighborhood Plan, was lead-free by 43. We've been fortunate to receive several lead grants. Have another $5.4 million one that we're just getting started on. And so CDBG dollars can be used and will be used in this latest lead grant round to help match that. We want to provide assistance to homeowners and investors. We are recommending continuing to fund code enforcement position. This allows us to use it for historic rehabilitation, which we've used in the downtown quite a bit. We would be allowed to use it for acquisition and demolition. We've tended to be a little bit gun shy on that because of the regulations associated with it, but we wanted to make sure it was included in the consolidated plan as an eligible cost in case the need arose. And we also, one of the recommendations, you could see how much how much lower the number of homeowners were in the target area. By providing homeowner assistance and home buyer assistance, we'd like to increase the rate of home ownership in the downtown areas. Something I didn't mention on the last slide on the consolidated plan, we also need to recognize them in their high priority or low priority goals. So the last one was a high priority. This one is also a high priority. Economic development, I'm glad to say, is also a high priority. And this is really how do we create economic opportunities for individuals and families with that are in the lower income category. Heidi McCarthy on my staff, I had mentioned at the beginning of this that she really reached out to building and businesses that have received some of the city's assistance in the past and asked how we can, what didn't go well, what could go better. So we really have revamped our programs over the last few years. They're now on the website. We're looking to do some micro enterprise lending. Instead of saying we're only putting the money into real estate, we're saying we'll put it into working capital. We'll help you buy equipment. We'll help you with getting training, perhaps, if you're a micro enterprise. So the rules have varied, but we're really looking to improve the programs. We looked at best practices from around the country and modeled our programs under some of those better practices. And the last goal is public infrastructure, and this is really using CDBG dollars to improve the target area infrastructure. A few years back, we slip-lined the sewer pipes throughout the area. We've done streets. I think Walnut Street was funded with CDBG dollars. Ash Street was done several years back. On top of this, we can also assist public facilities. That's where I touched upon the YWCA, getting assistance with the roof. We helped fund Sophia's house this year. They got $150,000 out of their $1.6 million project. Came from CDBG. Tree Street Youth, with both of their expansions, got public facilities dollars. And those are, even though those are public service agencies, the money's going into brick and mortar improvements, so they're not bound by the cap. Some of the recommendations that have come out from HUD recently was that, and we can tell you this as staff, the regulatory burden of using CDBG dollars is only increasing. The accounting standard is quite high. Heather's not here tonight. She could speak to it better, but Jane can also speak to it. But federal regulations, gap financing requirements, 2 CFR, they are very strident, lots of rules, and part of the reason we said we got to quit giving agencies $2,500 is the accounting principles that we need to abide by. Every agency we give dollars to also needs to abide by them. So it's a very high standard they need to meet. Section 3 is a requirement of CDBG. That's where you're really giving preferential treatment to companies that will hire or create low-income jobs and accounting for it. Davis-Bacon wages, make sure that people are paid a fair living wage. Environmental reviews, you can't spend a dime of, well, I'm overstating it. It's very difficult to spend CDBG dollars other than for soft costs such as architectural and engineering. If you're gonna be getting into bricks and mortar, you're gonna be improving a house, you need to do an environmental review, which, depending on the level, can take quite a bit of time. I've already noted before that they recommended we limit the number of agencies. The Citizen Advisory Committee came to the conclusion that 10 would be a fair number. We are no longer going to be able to fund a general assistance position. We had funded one for the last 5 years, but because we now have dollars at the local general fund, will cover, and actually the demand on general assistance has diminished over the last few years. You're not allowed to supplant federal dollars. Excuse me, you're not allowed to supplant local dollars with federal dollars. So we learned from HUD we can no longer fund the GA position, but we can continue to fund the code enforcement position because it is focused specifically on the target area and improving the situation in that area. Some recommendations that came from the committee was we will go for the agencies and city departments and public works infrastructure projects. We will have a once-a-year process that is a little bit delayed this year. We normally would have the request for proposals on the street right now because we needed to get this consolidated plan approved. And so the people responding would have something to know what they were responding to. We delayed that until early January, and committee will start its work late January, early February. A slight distinction between public infrastructure, which is literally roads, water, sewers, and public facilities, which is Tree Street Youths and YWCA of the world. The committee thinks we should allow applications to come in on it all around the year. The YWCA had their leak, and we said, well, it's gonna be 6 months before you can even apply. Then it'll be another 6 months before the money becomes free. By going to a year-round application project specifically for public facilities, it really allows CDBG dollars to address the issues that arise unexpectedly. As long as there's money available, the council would be able to reallocate dollars. As I've touched upon before, fund no more than 10 agencies, provide a minimum of $5,000. And committee also wanted to better reflect the scoring process, really have it be improved upon. Over 5 years, it had gotten tired as the rules had changed a little bit. So they really revisited it. And rather than having 100 points available, they've gone to limiting it to 30. There would be a community need and benefit would be worth 10 points. And that's really how does it not only reflect what's in the consolidated plan, but how does it really meet some needs within the community that are likely going unaddressed. So that is how you would score best under that category. The way they designed the program to address those needs would also be worth 10 points. The capacity of the organization to deliver it would be worth 6. And whether this thing made sense, what they're proposing makes sense, would be worth 4. At this point, public notice was first published November 21st. We are taking public comments until the 21st of December. If anyone would like to speak tonight, we would encourage you to allow it. And the formal public hearing will be on the 17th. And as I noted before, all public comments received will be incorporated and addressed in the plan. Just because somebody speaks doesn't mean it will actually get written into the plan, but it will be noted in the plan. Whether it should be acted upon or included or not will be taken advantage of, and if we need to. Historically, we don't get a lot of comments, to tell you the truth. If something comes in that's unexpected, it's a fabulous idea, and you folks really need to take another bite at it, we'll certainly bring it back to you. With that,
So before we go to the public questions or comments on the council, Councilor Lyson.
Yeah, link. There's mention of homelessness a couple of times in a strategy to provide safe, warm, and welcoming spaces in all seasons for those experiencing homelessness. I know there's an objective to do housing first, which is kind of a model that can work with the right resources, but I think there's a growing movement that says Lewiston needs a kind of a barrier-free type of homeless shelter in the community. And I know that's controversial or whatever, but I think it behooves me. There's a number of people have asked me recently about that. Who would, and they're trying to get a committee together to talk about that. Because as I understand it, the shelters that do exist have barriers that won't allow everyone to go there. And I think we need to, begin to consider, do we need a homeless shelter here, a public homeless shelter here without barriers? So, and
Yeah, thanks, Jim. That, Pauline, you can correct me, I believe that was part of the Citizen Advisory Committee discussion.
It was discussed.
Right, and Jane serves on the LASH committee, and I know that's been a big part of their discussions
I
as
get
well.
quite a long while myself. So I mean, I think that's an issue that, I think, just feeling the energy around that something's going to happen in that area, and I think that it addresses obviously some needs that are expressed here in the consolidated plan with respect to homelessness. I mean, it'd be great to take every homeless individual and put them right into a housing first, but we can't. We don't have the resources to do that. What do we do in the interim? And I think Lash struggled with that. We wanted to push the housing first concept, but again, it doesn't answer the immediate needs unless we have those units available. So,
Thank you.
Anyone else on the council? Councilor Rickles?
Where should folks send their public comments? Is it on the website or?
It is on the website. If you go to the city's website, go to the Department of Economic and Community Development. Under Community Development, there'll be a link to the consolidated plan.
Great. And not in regards to this discussion, but what Councilor Lewiston just brought up has come to me a couple times as well. And so if this is an appropriate place to have just a footnote that says it's a thought and a conversation happening in the community.
Great. And one, just for clarification, Jim, I think you said publicly funded as well, so it would not necessarily be run by the Tedfords of the world this way.
right. A public, like a Preble Street, that's important.
Okay.
And there's one in Bangor too.
But that one's not publicly funded,
Which one?
the one in Bangor.
It's private nonprofit. But it is a generally low barrier, it will not, there's a separate wet shelter in Bangor that's run by Acadia Hospital.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item?
Hi, Heather Everly. I live on Blake Street. I'm really concerned about the continued narrative that the people in Lewiston can't be trusted. We're just told that there's 74% of children that are living in poverty. Ms. Gudez, you just said that if you give them money, it will do no good. We need to trust people in our community with money in their own livelihoods. They are the professionals of their own lives and their surroundings. You're not living in the downtown and the tree streets where this is happening. We, as a community, need people to believe in us. And as a community leader and as a probation officer and someone in law enforcement who's working with children and people that are trying to do better and restore their lives, please take into consideration that we need to be trusted, or none of this is going to go anywhere. It's going to just keep going through the cycles that we've been going through, and we're going to remain stagnant for another 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this item? Great, I will close the public comment period. Any further questions or comments from the council? Great, thank you.
Thank you. We'll be back next week and ask you to approve the plan. Thank you.
So we'll take a brief recess until 7.
It's
Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. So we will start tonight with, hold on.
Acceptance of the minutes.
Acceptance of the minutes of the October 1 and 15 meetings. Do I have a motion?
Move to accept.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Lyson, seconded by Counselor LaJoy. Any discussion on the council? Counselor Marcotte?
Question on the October 1st. I know I circled it on Friday, but I don't remember exactly why. The adjournment vote was 7-0, but everything prior to said 6-0. Now I'm seeing 5-0 at a certain point, which is what's confusing me earlier in the agenda.
Right, so in looking at the minutes, Counselor, or Mayor Cloutier was absent from that meeting, so it would have been 6-0, so probably just the template just carried it over from 7-0, so we can
So
make
it
that
should be
fix
6-0.
for 6-0, yes, thank you.
Counselor Wright?
So, just on that, I had to recuse myself, due to a conflict on one of the votes.
So that was the 5-0.
The 5-0 is correct. I do have a comment on October 15th as well. Under vote 255-2019, under failure to register on page 3, we have our potions plague us again.
Yes, so that's page 3, so we will correct that as well for that typo, thank you.
What was it?
It says potions instead of
Oh,
portions.
potions.
It was funny during Halloween time.
But not funny the 20th time.
I don't know, I
Understand.
still think it's kind of.
Yes, we will change that, thank you.
Just as long as a certain other words is done, that's fine. Because that would be,
So you have.
We will, yes, we will fix that, those typos, yes, thank
Okay.
you.
So all those in favor? Oh.
Yeah, I'll accept that amendment. I moved
Okay,
or seconded.
great. All those in favor?
Excellent, it's unanimous, thank you.
We will now open it up for a public comment period. Any member of the public may make comments regarding issues pertaining to Lewiston City Government not otherwise covered on this agenda. We allow 3 minutes per speaker and a maximum time for all comments of 15 minutes. Does anyone wish to give public comment? Great. I will close public comment period. Kathy?
Yes, all roll call votes for this meeting will begin with the Counselor of Ward 7. And we'll also note for the record that this meeting is the rescheduled meeting of December 3rd. December 3rd, we had a snowstorm, so the meeting was postponed to this evening.
Great, thank you. Agenda item number 1.
Item number 1, public hearing on the renewal application for a special amusement permit for live entertainment for Cowbell and Tap, 49 Lisbon Street. Requested action to grant a special amusement permit for live entertainment to Cowbell and Tap, 49 Lisbon Street.
so moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Marcotte, seconded by Counselor Lyson. Any discussion on the council? To the public, back to the council. Call the roll.
Counsel from Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 2.
Item number 2, public hearing on the renewal application for a special amusement permit for live entertainment for the barbecue pit, 838 Lisbon Street. Requested action to grant a special amusement permit for live entertainment to the barbecue pit, 838 Lisbon Street.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion by Counselor LaJoy, seconded by Counselor Pettingill. Any discussion on the council? To the public, back to the council. Call the roll.
Counsel from Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 3.
Item number 3, public hearing on an application for a business license renewal for Merrimack River Medical Services Incorporated for an outpatient addiction treatment clinic at 18 Mollison Way. There are 2 items for requested action. The first item is to conduct a public hearing to receive citizen input and comment regarding the application submitted by Merrimack River Medical Services Incorporated for renewal of their business license to operate an outpatient addiction treatment clinic at 18 Mollison Way in Lewiston.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Lyson, seconded by Counselor LaJoy. Any discussion on the council? To the public, back to the council. Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
And Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So now the council can open the public hearing for any comments on the application from Merrimack.
Great. Public comment period is open. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak on this item? All right, public hearing closed.
Okay, great. So the next item before you is to approve the license for an outpatient addiction treatment clinic for Merrimack River Medical Services Incorporated to operate a clinic at 18 Mollison Way, Lewiston, subject to the attached conditions.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Lyson, seconded by Counselor Beam. Any discussion on the council? Counselor Marcotte?
I see that there are 7 conditions for the license. I would assume that most of these items had to be in play during the last licensing period.
Yes,
So this is just to keep that going forward?
yes, those criteria have been established, were established at the time that this facility opened in Lewiston and have continued pretty much forward. I think there was 1 year where we adjusted one of the items regarding the number of meetings to be held between staff there and the police department and administration.
So they're in full compliance with them?
Yes.
It's just being restated?
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions on the council? To the public? Back to the council? Call the roll?
Council from Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
And Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 4.
Item number 4, public hearing and final passage for the ordinance amending section 50-19 of the Code of Ordinances, offenses and miscellaneous provisions prohibiting the use of tobacco products in designated areas, Central Maine Medical Center. Requested action to approve final passage of the ordinance amending section 50-19 of the Code of Ordinances, offenses and miscellaneous provisions prohibiting the use of tobacco products in designated areas, Central Maine Medical Center.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Lyson, seconded by Counselor LaJoy. Any discussion on the council? To the public?
Hi, Heather Everly Barabee again. I'm just curious, how is this being enforced? Because there's an officer, Aaron Smits, down behind the library hiding, and he's kind of like pouncing on people, not quite literally, but I don't really think that it's okay that you have officers being employed for the particular cause of stalking people in the community who are largely people that don't have a job that are going to the library. And I think that this is off-leading, that people, it even comes down to a classist situation where somebody's family is dying at the hospital and they can't even go outside to have a cigarette. So they're just gonna like freak out when they're at the hospital because they have no way of getting it out. But I really think that you need to think about what you're doing and creating jobs for law enforcement when Lewiston's crime is at a lowest in 20 years, and we're consistently below national and state averages. Anytime we go anywhere, we get treated like criminals. We have police following us, and I know that I'm not the only person that feels this way. There are many people that I have talked to in the community who feel this way about the police enforcement. Your goal should be to work yourselves out of jobs, to work the law enforcement out of jobs so it's not needed anymore.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this item? Back to the council. Counselor Marcotte?
I have a question for staff. How long has the ban on Lisbon Street been in play?
On Lisbon Street, has it gone into effect yet,
The
Kathy?
20th, I think it goes into effect.
Right.
I think we're still within the 30-day waiting period for the ordinance to take effect.
Okay, so there couldn't possibly be any enforcement happening along?
Not at this time, because the ordinance is not yet in effect.
I think they were using the interim time, because as you know, it's 30 days for effective date in the charter, so I think they were using that time to create signs, put up
Correct.
signage, notify the businesses and impacted people.
Okay, because when I heard that there's an officer, waiting to ticket somebody, it made me think that it was already in place.
No, there has been, we did for a period of time have a police officer on foot patrols on Lisbon Street to try to respond to some of the issues that have come up down there with people congregating and stuff like that and comments being made, but that's no longer in place either because of the number of vacancies we have in the police department.
Okay. And obviously, littering was of a concern too along that route.
Littering was a concern.
And I'll
Yes.
use this time to explain again that I'll be voting no on this particular motion because it includes a section of Main Street, which is a thoroughfare from one end of Main Street to the other. And interestingly enough, something that I just heard that I probably wanted to mention on a previous occasion, a lot of times you do see hospital employees out there on that sidewalk smoking. So, will the hospital be providing an alternative space for these individuals? I know my employer does, most employers do. It may be a certain amount of distance from the building if that's a statute or an internal rule, but usually that's permitted. So that will be an enforceable or an enforcement nightmare along Main Street as well.
Any further discussion on the council? Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 7?
No.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
motion passed by a vote of 6 to 1.
Agenda item number 5.
Item number 5, public hearing and final passage for the ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 3, Division 12, 13, and 14 of the Code of Ordinances, Department of Public Works. Requested action to approve final passage of the ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 3, Divisions 12, 13, and 14 of the Code of Ordinances, Department of Public Works.
So, second.
I have a motion by Counselor LaJoy, seconded by Counselor Lyson. Any discussion on the council? Can you just give us a reminder, Ed, of what?
Sure. Basically, the City Code of Ordinance has an organizational section that lays forth the creation of the various departments and their organizational structure. The Public Works Department, over the years, has gone through some dramatic changes, as at one point we used to have both a Public Services and a Public Works Department and a Recreation Department, all three of which have been combined. So this ordinance basically attempts to restructure or to reflect the organizational structure that we're putting in place in that department, and also reflects the interests of Public Works Director Dowdy to have a clearly identified management team in place that will assist in integrating the work of the various divisions of the department, and also specifically designates the Public Works Director to serve on the Lewiston Auburn Water Pollution Control Authority and Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission and the Androscoggin Transportation Resource Center Policy Committee. That position has traditionally done so. This simply puts it in the ordinance so we don't have to go through the routine reappointment process.
Great, thanks. To the public? Back to the council? Counselor Lyson?
I know Dale's put a lot of work into this, and I particularly like the divisions of the department, this kind of staff charting. Sometimes you really, unless you put it on paper like that, some of the relationships that are pretty important. So, and that's helpful to kind of look at the structure as well. So, kudos to him.
Further discussion in the council? Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
And Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Agenda item number 6.
Item number 6, continuation of public hearing for the proposed tax increment financing district and program for Saxton Partners, the residents at Great Falls. Requested action to continue the public hearing for the proposed tax increment financing district and program for Saxton Partners, the residents at Great Falls, to the December 17th, 2019 City Council meeting.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion by Counselor Lyson, seconded by Counselor Pettingill. Just to clarify, this just sort of postpones this item to the next.
Yes, they actually requested that this be postponed so that it can be considered at the same meeting that you will be looking at the pending rezoning of the property.
Questions or comments from the council? To the public? Back to the council? Call the roll.
Council from Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
And Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 7.
Item number 7, resolve accepting and adopting public art plan as city master policy number 2. Requested action to approve the resolve accepting and adopting public art plan as city master policy number 2.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion by Counselor Lyson, seconded by Counselor Pettingill. Any discussion on the council? To the public? Back to the council? Call the roll.
Council from Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
And Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 8.
Item number 8, reports and updates.
Counselor Ray.
The school committee had its last meeting of this term last night, last regular meeting. A couple items discussed. We waived fees for YMCA basketball, who is using one of the schools. We need to revisit that policy, but for the time being, those kids can play at one of our elementary schools. I know that was a concern in the community. An additional athletics thing, girls volleyball at the middle school. We really need to clarify the policy on sponsorship and funding and what order that goes in. And then outgoing members were recognized last night. And just a PSA, get your flu shot, wash your hands, don't get on a plane.
Thank you. Other reports and updates from counselors? Agenda item number 9.
Any other city business counselors or others may have relating to Lewiston City Government?
So as folks may or may not know, Ben Martin resigned from the planning board after the most recent election, and so there was an open spot on the planning board. I reached out to the 2 associate members. Roger Fuller, who was the first one I named, wished to remain an associate member, so I'm elevating Ryan Rhodes to the full member position and appointing Linda Scott to the associate position. Any other business other counselors may have? Agenda item number 10.
I have a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to MRSA Title I, Section 405-6A, to discuss a personnel matter regarding the annual evaluation of the city administrator.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Lyson, seconded by Counselor Ray. All those in favor?
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.